If you're listening, you're a member of the Road Gang because this is Road Gang Radio.
Saddle up. We're wasting sun.
It's Jimmy Mack. It's Lindsay Lawler. It's New Orleans. It's Nashville. A show about making a living. A show about making a life. It's the biggest...
Is that a fat joke?
And the best collection of voices in trucking, transportation, and travel. Not only in this world, but beyond.
We're looking at you, Zebulon 5.
Let's turn this sucker over.
I think that's your cue, Phone Master Dre.
Thank you, Phone Master Dre. He's revving it up, and Madison with a T is on the ones and the twos, crossing those T's and dotting those I's. Abigail Adams once said to her husband, "Don't forget the ladies, John," as we were figuring out a new country to kind of create. Before we get to our next guest on Revolution Road with the Journal of the American Revolution, I want to point out, by the way, in the 5 respondent states in the Evolving Truck Driver Demographic study that our friends at ATRI did, women hold just 4% of all Class A CDLs, highlighting their underrepresentation among Class A CDL holders overall. Yet among all women who do hold a CDL, 37% have a Class A license, tractor trailers or tanker trucks, compared to 78% of men. The majority of women with CDLs in those 5 states hold Class B CDLs, school buses, city buses, garbage trucks, and delivery trucks. Only 1% of men and 6% of women hold a Class C CDL, small school buses or shuttle buses with GVWR 26,000 pounds or less. Hey, guys, dig this. That's exciting news, by the way, for the ladies. That means when they get into it, they get into it. I mean, that's good news. And by the way, you want this whole thing to skewer younger? I got a great plan. Get some more ladies.
Get ladies.
I mean, come on. I mean, I love all you guys. I love talking with, Bruce Almighty and Joe J and Marshall and all you groovy folks out there. But there are too many dudes in Dude Town doing dude things, man.
Where the
Come
ladies
on.
at?
Where the ladies at? Well said, Dre. All right, Dre, take it easy. Take it easy. It's okay, buddy. Down boy. Down boy. Down boy. I know. I brought up the ladies because they didn't have much to do with in regards to writing the Constitution of the United States. And so our focus on that particular document is going to be a little bit male-skewered. Ray Raphael is joining us. He's an author, historian, associate editor for the Journal of the American Revolution. We like him very much. Guys, go to Ray, R-A-P-H-A-E-L, R-A-Y, RAPHAEL.com. And you can find him on the TubeU under that same name with 1787. Well picked, by the way, on the number. You knew nobody had that one. Hey, Ray, welcome back. It's good to have you, man.
Oh, man, I like to talk with you folks. Yes, definitely.
Let me kind of give people your bona fides here. He's done 3 decades of research looking at the primary resources of the United States' founding era. And that's really crucial, too, because I've always said if anybody writes a history book that is set in another country and the majority of the books in the back of the book aren't written in the language of that country, you probably shouldn't trust it. Anybody does anything on the American Revolution or the Civil War and they don't have literally a bibliography rammed, jammed, and packed with primary sources, you should probably run in the other direction, or you're reading a tertiary textbook. Ray, welcome. He has been looking at the contributions of common people to the founding of this country and explodes myths that have been perpetrated over the years. So you probably guess why I brought up the ladies. There's a lot of voices that help frame what it is we call our laws today. And you actually do a really what I would call almost a Clifford Geertz sort of thick description of the Constitution. You've got 10 books under your belt, and it is really good to have you. Welcome back. And how is your Labor Day weekend shaping up?
Labor Day weekend shaping up just fine. I'm going to go whitewater kayaking on Saturday, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and I got some movie plans with a couple of an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old boy. I want to go see the 4 that are fantastic. We'll be checking that out as well. But I thought we would spend today's Revolution Road. There's so much that we can talk about. One of your books, your annotation, the U.S. Constitution explained clause by clause for every American today, is still in wide circulation. And like I said, we can go wherever you want to go because there's so much to talk about. But I was kind of wondering, when you go through this kind of stuff, when you do that kind of work, can you talk about the depth of which? Does it go to kind of Oxford English Dictionary depth of like not just parsing the meaning of the words, but really looking at multiple definitions of what sort of aura each word carried back in those days, especially the contentious ones?
Yeah, you always have to go to primary sources. If you're a historian and you're just relying on what other historians have said or other narrators, you're going to get nowhere. For instance, one of my big finds was when the American Revolution started, and everybody says, "Oh, it started in 1775 at Lexington and Concord." Well, I heard that these casual references to crowd actions and rural unrest in Massachusetts, and before that, so I looked into it, and it turned out that the year before Lexington and Concord, throughout the Massachusetts colony, everywhere outside of Boston, people had overthrown British rule. So, and that just comes from the primary sources. I went back to the minutes of the town meetings and all those kinds of things, and found a revolution before the revolution. Wrote 2 books about it. And now in the Constitution, the main source we have is Madison's notes. He took meticulous notes every day. Oh my gosh, so it's hundreds of pages of notes on the Constitution, what everybody said. And so you could see how often they spoke and what they said and what the positions were, and all the different motions that got changed, and the process was fascinating. Anyway, so I'm a great fan of early American history, particularly that time before the Revolution, and the Constitution. The Constitution, of course, is what we live by today, so that has particular relevance. So here's what's new in my life since we last talked. My son Neil is a video and music producer of African hip hop, of all things. He actually moved to Uganda and got into that, and he produces a major music and video producer with African hip hop. So he's been bugging me for quite some time to say, "Hey, Pops, we need to go on YouTube with the Constitution." And so finally we did it. And that's what you refer to my YouTube channel, Ray Raphael, 1787, and that's and it's called the channel is called Our Constitution, If We Can Keep It. And the premise is we've probably many of your listeners have heard this story that's widespread. Right after the convention ended, Benjamin Franklin meets up with Elizabeth Willing Powell. It was actually a close friend, kind of a Philadelphia socialite, and she says she confronts him. She says, "Hey, doctor, what have we got? A republic or a monarchy?" And he says, "A republic, if you can keep it." And so that's the title of our channel, our Constitution, if we can keep it. And the idea is to just explain it, just as I did in my annotation of the Constitution, clause by clause. But to do that, I mean, where's the storyline here? Where's the storyline? So I actually, the 9 episodes take us through from the beginning, like, why the heck did they do this thing? Like, what's the big deal? Why are they all holing up in the summer of, hot, steamy room in the summer of 1787, hammering out the Constitution? Why are they doing it? And then I take it through the Constitution itself, as we, the preamble and who wrote it and what it means, and the three branches of government, and then how they check and balance each other, and finally the dramatic ratification process, which was very fascinating, because huge debates. I mean, kind of like the debates we were having today. People very animated about whether they should do this thing.
Let me kind of, there's a question I've been dying to ask you since the last time we spoke. There's a question I've been dying to ask you, given your deep knowledge of primary sources and your deep knowledge of the Constitution, that relates to what we're talking about. So they draft the Constitution, but I was kind of curious. I'm a big fan of Bernard Bailyn's book, To Begin the World Anew, because I look at things from an artistic standpoint. Sometimes that, governmental documents, the idea of constitutions and declarations are written, particularly in that time period, with a certain flourish, a certain kind of love of art. But there is a love of action, too. And I've been dying to kind of put this one to you, and I'll buy you some time in case it kind of catches you on the back foot. How much of fighting the war itself, how much of the revolution became a place where people were able to kind of make reference to what happened during the conflict, what happened in regards to Washington's abilities and inabilities to get the supplies that he needs, the spread of supply chains, the spread of communication. How much did the war itself impact directly the writing and the conception of the Constitution? And if you really haven't done a lot of work in that particular area, it's okay to say, I got to do more work. But if you have any initial impressions, I would love to get your thoughts, Ray.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's crucial. The war, obviously, the war was the big event in their lives. I mean, the war had just been over just a few years when they're doing this thing, and it wasn't finally over till 1783, and the Constitution is drafted in 1787. So, but the war was why they wrote the Constitution, because during the war, what was bringing the colonies together? It was the Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation, and what that was each colony sent representatives to the to meet together, and they call it Continental Congress. In the Continental Congress, and every state had one vote. And that was at large or small. And in order for anything to happen, all 13 states had to agree on any kind of change to the structure of this thing. Imagine getting 13 people together in one room with some consequential decisions to make, and they all have to agree. One person doesn't, forget it. Now, the big bugaboo, first of all, how do you administer that? How do they administer this thing? I mean, it's just a bunch of, rich planters and merchants getting together. And how do they administer an actual war? And in particular, how do they get the money for it? Well, the way they got the money for it under the Articles is they just kind of they set what each state was supposed to pay, and then they was basically according to their size, and then they were supposed to pony up that money. Well, it became increasingly difficult to get any money at all out of the even after the war ended. Nobody was paying, so the whole federal government. And there were expenses, because even after the war, they have an army. They have an army out west. They still have to protect. Maybe somebody Britain's going to attack them again or something. I mean, they're involved in international politics. They got Spain going on the south and France on the north, and they've been fighting a big war with France. And so they need an army. Okay, well, here's how much money they got to support their army and any other governmental mechanisms they had. In the 6 months before the Constitution, Congress brought in a grand total of $667 continental dollars. That's it. That's it. That's why that's all they got. And now, so people are saying, "Hey, come on, this isn't working." I mean, everybody knew this is just not working. We got to do something. So they said, okay, we're going to do, and meanwhile, at home, things were kind of falling apart, because the farmers we've heard of Shays' Rebellion in Massachusetts. The farmers felt they were being taxed too hard, and they didn't pay, and they basically had revolts, and there were other local revolts in several other states. And so the place was basically just a total mess. And so they get together and they say, okay, this confederation business is not working. We have to be a nation. Dudes, okay, because the ladies were not remembered. They said, yeah, dudes, we got to get together. We got to do something about this. Come on to Philadelphia and let's get together and hammer something out. So it's basically, we need a nation, and we got to make it work, because it ain't working now.
Yeah, and by the way, you talk about the idea of everybody having to agree, the idea even if one vote goes off. And so it seems like a lot of the lessons of both logistics and the ability to take action, because one of the biggest problems throughout the war, until the tide turns and the French kind of step in, what is that great thing where nobody really wants to kind of pony up, even though they're all going to hang together? They're all going to hang separately if they don't hang together, to kind of paraphrase the comment. There really is a sense of, this thing is barely holding together, because the rich states are like, why do we have to pay so much when you guys aren't paying anything at all? And the poor states are saying, well, if you make us pay any sort of percentage, we're going to go bankrupt here. And I suddenly feel like we're in 2025, with the idea that some states are bearing a larger kind of tax burden than others. But at the same time, the states that aren't bearing that large burden, that percentage hurts them more. And it feels like we have been having this argument in perpetuity. And the fight has always been this kind of indemnification against having to resort to one-man rule. The idea, because I wonder sometimes about Washington in these moments when, I don't want to call him feckless, but it's pretty darn close, where you literally have him having to beg for the resources that he needs and the communication networks that he needs, going, you know what, I should just run this whole damn thing. And it just makes him look more remarkable, given the nonsense he put up with during the war, that he actually gives up the reins of power and limits his own power. It's kind of extraordinary what kind of figure kind of launches our initial experiment in democracy. I did want to go ahead, please.
And his presence actually made a. Let me just backtrack a little bit in terms of the process and how the convention proceeded, because at the very beginning you have to understand there weren't three branches of government. There was one branch, Congress. That was it. And everybody knew that Congress had to be the basic branch, because the Congress represents the people. It's the people gathering, electing their representatives. Their representatives come together and do what they have to do. And so initially, in the beginning, that's all there was, Congress. So on the very first day, James Wilson kind of stuns the room. Basically, he says, "Hey, you know what? I think we need a chief. I think we need an executive." Everybody knew there had to be an executive office somehow, instead of just a bunch of committees. And he says, "I think there should be a single person as the chief executive." And all these guys are, they're yakking throughout the summer. They got a lot to say. And the funniest thing from Madison's notes is, after he said that, a great pause ensuing. That's what the note says. Like, holy cow, what is this? We're going to have one person. And, it was a scary, scary notion. But now get back to Washington. The very presence of Washington and the immense respect that he held in that room, and he was chairing the convention because he's the guy who everybody respected. It gave them enough cover or whatever to actually say, yes, perhaps it's possible to have a single person, one person as president. But simultaneously, they got really, really worried about whether that that person would have too much power. And now we're going to move into the whole thing about checks and balances, and we can talk about that and how they really carved this very elaborate structure, basically hoping that no one branch subsumed the other. The Congress shouldn't subsume the president should subsume everything. The Supreme Court, okay, what's their role in this? And it's a fascinating story. I mean, actually, and I'm just going to plug my YouTube channel here. Again, it's Our Constitution, If We Can Keep It. What I do is I take us through that narrative and tell the story, bringing out individual characters, and some of these characters are really interesting. Like who out there has heard of Gouverneur Morris? Gouverneur Morris. Well, he was a remarkable fellow. He had a peg leg lost a leg during a carriage accident. I say traffic. Hey, truckers. Okay, that's what we got as carriages then. But he was really charming, charmed the ladies, charmed everybody else, really. And he spoke more often spoke more often than anybody else at the convention, and had a remarkable say in things. So he's like one of the main characters. For instance, he's the guy who actually engineered this elaborate, crazy mechanism we have called the Electoral College. We can get into that later. But anyway, that's one of the characters. Another one is who's the guy who really had the most to say about Congress, which is the basics of the whole thing. The main part of the government is Congress, and then the other two are kind of add-ons to make it all work. Okay, who had most to say? Was it Madison? Was it Franklin? Hamilton? Who had the most to say? Well, it turns out it was Roger Sherman Now, how many of you guys out there in trucker land know about Roger Sherman? Well, probably not much. He doesn't get much press, but he's the guy who really engineered Congress, and he's remarkable because all the rest of these guys are as I say, rich planters.
He's a man of the people. Sherman is very much a man of the people. I mean, Sherman is very much, I guess, as close as you can have to a fire-breathing, not populist in its negatory context, but a real person who believes in enfranchisement. That please correct me if I get this wrong, but my memories of Sherman are of somebody who is a real sort of gadfly to a large degree to a lot of these people. Correct?
Yes. And the remarkable thing about him is he's a cobbler.
Right.
He's a cobbler who started as he's just a lower class guy mending worn out shoes, but he was a smart guy, and he kind of like somebody sent him to school, and he learned a lot of stuff, and he was also a fascinating character because he kind of had a very odd demeanor. He kind of held his hand kind of in a funny way and talked funny in a kind of strange New England cant. And anyway, these are the kinds of characters that I'm trying to bring out. We have these people; they're just names, and when we spew them forth and so on. I tried on our YouTube channel. I try to make them real, and it's fun because we have images of all these guys, and we have images from the times. And so I got to just say, the making of this video, I've written 20 books, 10 of which are on the revolution and founding, and that's all fine. I'm a writer, but boy, going into the visual field and then tapping in through the internet, we can tap into all these wild contemporaneous visuals from the time, and Neil. And so I kind of get the idea of how we're going to incorporate these visuals, because who wants to sit there just watching me act all the time? So about half of it is voiceover, and you're seeing these visuals kind of bringing the story to life. And how much fun is that, bringing all those visuals in? And then, as I say, Neil is a professional at this thing, so he executes it fun. So basically, these episodes, they're about 4 to 10 minutes. The 9 episodes taking us through finally from the beginning to ratification, and so they're easy. How can I say that? They're easy viewing, but very informative.
Let me say something here really quickly. My partner Lindsay shows up at 9 o'clock here. We do 2 halves of the show. Revolution Road has kind of nicely fallen into our making a living section, although in many ways it is as much about the imagination of the American people as anything else. One of the things you must be really proud of in discovering what it is your son does, because I don't know if you know this, but that the opening you heard when we started the segment was made by my wife. Claire Marie did that sound design. And what is interesting about it is that, and Madison, who's the producer right now, she gets this. That's about 4.5 hours of work to produce the thing you heard at the top, just to actually produce the thing itself. Your understanding as a writer, and we know how hard that is, as one myself, you must have a deep admiration to understand what it takes to produce 10 minutes of video. It's a lot of work, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's a lot of work, and you brought your wife into it, so I'll bring mine into it, too, okay?
Right.
So there's the three of us. I have the information, and I'm the kind of the on-screen guy, and I write it. But then Marie, she's edits all my books. We've actually co-written 3 of my Revolution books, and including the Idiot's Guide to the Founding Fathers. We'll plug that one, and also a short biography of Hamilton that Barnes and Noble wanted us to do to go along with the play, and. So she's co-authored that, and so she edits I give her the script, and then she kind of works it over, and we figure it out, okay? And then she's also, and Neil does all the mechanics. We've got the green screen in back in back, just a home studio with natural light, green screen, which becomes the American flag, which you'll see. And he's really a master at the microphone and getting everything together there. And then right before, and then Marie, about half of it's on screen, half of it is voiceover. But the on screen thing, I have to give my lines, and remember them and say them. And so she's sitting over to the just back of Neil, and she's like the acting coach, and we say, no, you look frowny. This is a happy moment. Come on, perk it up, and that kind of thing. Slower, don't rush the bit. then get this. I'm kind of an older guy now. Used to be younger, but getting a little older. So I got a little bit of bag under my eyes. So she's also the makeup artist. We asked our granddaughter to how to get my skin tone, and she sent us to somewhere, and we have this tiny little dab to try to hide my baggy eyes. So that's the family production, and what a blast it is, to actually work with your family and to create a basically an artistic experience.
Oh, I'm telling you, Ray, from a person who does it, Ray Raphael joins us this morning, by the way, and you guys can go to rayraphael.com. That is RAPHAEL, rayraphael.com. And if you head over to that website, what you'll see is a man who entered the revolutionary era of America and really has never fully come back despite using newfangled technologies to communicate it over on his new YouTube channel. By the way, the name of that is Our Constitution. If we can keep it, it's pretty darn wonderful. Okay, so what's the next video coming out? What can we expect next from you, Ray?
Okay, well, 8 of the 9 episodes are out right this minute, and over the weekend, Neil's going to finish with the 9th on ratification, and so then the whole thing will be up, and I'll be trying to basically sort of plugging that and trying to get it out into the schools, because it really makes a marvelous, these things, each session, each video, it's like between 4 and 10 minutes, and they could make a nice class session, but they're also very entertaining. So basically, I'm going to be working on trying to get that into the schools for now. And if time and energy commit, in terms of my age and so on, I want to get in after that on the amendments. And the Bill of Rights and all that, and do the same kind of thing for the amendments.
By the way, if you guys are interested in the collaborative work he does, along with all the wonderful books there, I would point you towards The Spirit of 74, which is co-written with his wife, Marie. Ray Raphael has joined us this morning. All kinds of fun stuff over on that website, including teaching tools. You can take a couple of quizzes, and Ray keeps up with his work by always adding corrections and new additions. Ray, you are welcome back anytime. It's always a pleasure to have you. It's amazing, 27 minutes, and it really goes by fast, doesn't it?
It goes by way too fast, because when you're having fun, that's the way time works. but this is great. I love talking with you. This is you get what I do. You get what I do, and I believe in what I do. So it's really fun to be able to communicate that. And thank you very much for inviting me.
You're welcome, Ray. And by the way, we all believe in America, and that is what makes this work so very well. Go to allthingsliberty.com, along with going to rayraphael.com, and find out ways that you too, if you decide, can even be an amateur historian and maybe write something yourself by looking at primary research. Thank you, Ray. We got to get out of here.